Brian's up first. He says, it seems that Ahrefs, Moz, etc. all have different ranking number. Which do you feel is the most accurate ranking site? As far as, you mean like what? Like, Brian, I'm assuming that you mean like the metrics that they give you as far as, you know, for Moz, it would be, or excuse me, Moz. For Majestic, it would be trust flow and citation flow. Is that what you mean? Ahrefs and Moz have, what are the ones that, it's been so long since I've used either Ahrefs or Moz, but they have, is it trust factor or no, rank? What are the metrics for that, Hernan, that they assign to it? Not domain authority. I'm not talking about domain authority and page authority, but they're like trust ratings.
Yeah, they have the Moz rank.
Yeah.
Moz rank. Okay, that's one of them.
Yeah, the Moz rank, and then they have a new kind of a spam metric or something like that I've noticed, and I came across it, and it's still highly, I would say, inaccurate, because, you know, I've gone through it and I throw completely spam domains, and they came back lower than real money sites, you know, that they have like a lower threshold of spam signals, if you would. So they have these spam metrics, whatever, and then they have the Moz rank, which is another metric as well.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as those, most of the time, Brian, and we've been talking about this for months, if not more than that, that those metrics really, I don't pay attention to those metrics anymore, and I haven't for quite some time, because they're all proprietary. And like Hernan just said, they're wildly inaccurate, in my opinion. I've seen sites with terrible ratings rank really, really well, and then I've seen sites with great ratings rank very poorly. So I just don't trust those metrics anymore. I mean, they're an indication, like trust flow, for example, and topical trust flow. It's something that we used for quite some time. And prior to using that, we were using Moz's domain authority and page authority for quite some time as a way to identify or measure the strength of domains or links, for that matter, or pages instead of just domains. But a lot of that stuff is not nearly as effective as it used to be, because Google caught on to all of, our manipulations that we would do with those, right? I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about us, like SEOs in general. People would manipulate those numbers in such a way. Like, I remember we used to do, I'm sure you guys have heard domain authority stacking, and that's something that, we did that as well. We would manipulate domain authority and page authority, doing all kinds of evil stuff. And that worked for quite some time, about a year and a half. That worked really, really well. And then it started to stop working, like it started to decline. And then we switched over to trust flow. And then we were manipulating trust flow metrics, and that would work really, really well. And then that started to decline. And then we started focusing more on topical trust flow, which is a measure of relevancy, topical relevancy. And that seemed to work better than any of the other ones. And we still focus on topical relevancy, but we don't use the Majestic metric as a measure of topical relevancy so much anymore. On a large, broad scale, yes. Like, if I'm going to be analyzing a list of domains for purchase, then I'll look at topical trust flow as kind of just an idea of what the inbound links are for a particular domain. But then I'll still go in and analyze it individually, each domain individually, and look at the inbound link profile, look at the content, what the content of the site was, all that kind of stuff. And so now I focus more on topical relevancy than I do on any one metric. And that's what we teach at Semantic Mastery, and we have been for many, many months now, is to not focus on so much on domain metrics or any of those proprietary metrics, and focus more on relevancy. And that can be done just with a quick review of the sites that you're trying to get links from, if that makes sense, or domains that you're going to purchase. It's just a matter of looking at them and seeing what was the content about. Does this relate to something that I can use, or how can I make it relate in some way that would be beneficial and pass relevancy, if that makes sense. So as far as, the only backlink analysis tool that I use, and it's the only one I've been using for probably about 2 years now, is Majestic. I stopped using all the others. I know Ahrefs is good, but I just specifically stuck with Majestic when we stopped using domain authority and page authority metrics, and we started focusing more on trust flow and topical trust flow, and I've just stuck with that one ever since. And now that I don't really use any of those metrics in my analysis anymore, it doesn't really matter. I just keep the subscription to Majestic so that when I do have to do a analysis, I have at least one tool available. If that makes sense. You guys want to add to that?
Yeah, just something.
Yeah, go ahead, Marco. Go ahead.
This was in a blog post that I did in December of 2015, right? The distance graph. Mm-hmm. It was the death of the PBN and what you needed to do in order for your PBN not to die, which is to find something with high trust, high authority, but not what Majestic and what do you call it, Moz tell you, but real authority, real trust, and relevant to whatever it is that you're doing. If it's not relevant, then it's practically become useless, unless, and we've mentioned this before tons of times, it has that those metrics that are out of this world, right? 60 to 80 domain authority and trust flow. When you're in that area, I mean, if you can get something like that, you have the holy grail of links. Otherwise, you just look for something that maybe has lower metrics, but is relevant to whatever it is that you're doing. And you make sure that it's linked to something that's relevant and that's considered either a seed site or a seed set. I mean, we did a whole webinar on seed sites and seed sets and iframes and everything that you could do to game the system, but I guess nobody was paying attention. Unless you're in RYS Academy and making tons of money.
Yep.
Right. You know, what I wanted to say real quick to add what you guys were saying is that I've been talking to Roman I think it was last week or the week before, that they were having great results. We're finding these kind of domains when they switch the focus from metrics into backlinks, you know, and history. So they were finding maybe the metrics weren't that high, but the backlinks were like pure gold, you know, backlinks from Wikipedia, backlinks from CNN, backlinks from those kind of things. And even if you're using something like blue chip backlinks or whatever, since we have our own, or we have it, or we're developing our own done for you PBN and done for you, you know, scrapes if you want. On SERP space, I think that when we switch something super simple like the approach to scrape from quality of backlinks and quality of history and quality of domains, it goes way further and the competition is lower because, again, everyone else is looking metrics, you know, and metrics are something. What we need to understand are that metrics are third-party tools. That's right. You know, so that's what something that I want to say. That the guys were finding like really good domains just by switching the approach to this. Yep,
and like you just mentioned, that they're third-party or proprietary metrics, guys. So it's their best guess as to what Google is looking for, you know, and so I mean, granted, they're educated guesses. I get that, but it's still proprietary. They don't work for Google, right? They don't have direct access to Google's metrics, so it's what they determine. They think, and from vast amounts of data, you know, I get that, but again, it's still proprietary. So we stopped focusing on that, and like Hernan mentioned, even like for the domains that we've been purchasing for our own stuff, as well as for scraping domains to be sold in SERP space and that kind of stuff, you know, we switched the focus over to looking at the inbound links, guys. And it's not, you know, here's the thing, even like if you're using blue chip backlinks or whatever, a domain scraper, and you're scraping your own domains, typically everyone looks for the metrics, right? They're looking for trust flow numbers that within a certain threshold or above a certain threshold, and that kind of thing. And that's great. I get that. But you can find domains that have zero trust flow, that have, you know, maybe 5 or 6 inbound links, right? But they're 5 or 6 inbound links from really relevant sources. And that's more valuable to me, even though the metric isn't there. The metric doesn't say that it's a very powerful domain to purchase because it has inbound links that are relative to what I'm going to be linking to from that domain. Then obviously that's a good link for me, or a good domain to purchase to use to build a link to whatever site that I want, if that makes sense, because it's got the relevant inbound links. And that to me is more important now than any metric.